So anyway, I just wanted to welcome everybody tonight. I thought I would try a presentation like June had done, and I haven't done this before, screen sharing. So it may, you know what I mean, we'll see how that goes, but I wanted to try something new and we'll see how it goes in a moment. But I want to just welcome everybody again tonight and on this eve of New Year's Eve that we all get to be together. I have gratitude for Brother Chi Sing and Thich Nhat Hanh. So I just wanted to call them in. I remember, I think it was the first year that we were here, we did the bowl burning and there was a fire inside. So Cornell had to stop the fire. So it was kind of nice to be able to do it outside. So tonight, my talk is going to be about Kriya Yoga, the yoga of action, and also then the mindfulness trainings, the slogans. And the slogans are really helpful to help shift our view and our perception when we have clouded thinking. But I thought I would tell you a story first. And this story came, and you've probably heard this story before, but I was listening to Wayne Dyer earlier this week, and he reminded me of it. So there was this woman going through transitions in life, and so she wrote a book. So the first chapter was she was walking down the road and on the sidewalk, and she fell into a ditch. And it took her a long time to get out of the ditch because she hurt herself and it was really hard to find her way. But eventually she got out of the ditch. Chapter 2, she decides to walk down the same street and was walking down the same sidewalk and fell into the ditch. This time she's mad and angry that somebody didn't fix the ditch. So she's blaming, the city for not having taken care of it. But eventually she found her way out. The chapter 3, she's walking down the same street on the same sidewalk and she sees the hole. She sees the ditch this time and she still fell in. And this time it's because of habit. She just was, not paying attention and there it went. Chapter 4, she decides to still walk down the same street, but this time she walked around the ditch. Chapter 5, she decides to go down a different street. So I thought that was kind of interesting because it's, the way we do make change sometimes is our ignorance is there and we're not able to see things really clearly until sometimes the suffering comes or the discomfort, and that discomfort can wake us up to change our behavior. And when we feel something, sometimes we want to project it out onto others, put that blame outwardly, rather than eventually becoming aware and taking responsibility for where we are and moving on. So anyhow, I thought that was a fun story that kind of ties everything in together. So we'll kind of move on with that. I wanted to first give you a little history of the mind trainings. So there was a teacher, Sir Lingpa, who lived in the Isle of Sumatra and was the holder of the body of the mind training teachings. So Atisha, a 10th century Indian Buddhist, he was said to have gone across the sea and it was really treacherous to get there. And he was able to bring them back to India and Tibet. And they were kept as a secret for a really long time until a 12th century Tibetan teacher was able to put them in and organize them into the trainings that we now call the slogans. And so they are all about grounding in awareness and compassion and empathy. So the slogans help us, just when we repeat them over and over again, you start to learn a body of knowledge. And so the concept kind of sinks in. And so over time, when you're about to react to something, you might remember, oh yeah, I remember a thought that you learned from the slogan, and you can keep it with you as a jewel. So the focus is on meditation. I thought we could just look again at meditation, what it gives us. So through meditation, we develop the ability to settle and relax our mind. And the meditation practice enhances our concentration and reduces the tendency to be judgmental, creating more spaciousness and more mental room to look at life more dispassionately. So pausing creates the spaciousness for reflection, acceptance, and visioning. There's a power in pausing to observe and honor and soften into the transitions between what we know and what has not yet come. So if we can intentionally cultivate a relationship with the space, we may open portals to a new awareness. So I just thought I'd ask real quickly, what does meditation provide for you? You know, what in any of these categories? I know for me, my body really relaxes. And after a period of time, I can tell the waveforms of my mind start to slow down a bit.
Fire coming in.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I feel when I do it before the day, it provides a much more open and clear approach to my day as to when I don't. I feel I enjoy the day much more, and I go about things.
Yeah, that's great. So I think this is I'll just kind of go through the first part here. Let me pull this down a little. So in yoga, we call mind chitta. So it's consciousness. So our consciousness is the middleman between the external world and the seer or awareness within. And it's conditioned by life experience. So I'm just going to pull this up here so that you can see. So Bobby had been talking to us at the beginning of December about relative bodhicitta and absolute. So on the far right, there's an eye. So that's like the seer within. And yoga, we call that the soul's light of awareness. And on the other side is a rose. And so the rose represents, reality, the truth of reality. And in the middle is our consciousness, or what we would call relative bodhicitta, which is the water. So, or excuse me, the wave. So the wave can create turbulence. So when we're in life, we have all these different things that we're hit up against, different things happen where, there could be an illness or some other type of trauma, and past conditioning then clouds our ability for the seer to see through what is really true. So the practice of, mindfulness and the slogans helps us to be able to eventually see, towards the bottom, really what reality is without diluting it and, making it into something else. So I thought that was kind of interesting, the seer as the water, the unified field of awareness, and the consciousness, our consciousness, that's what we're doing in our meditation practice, is really trying to get rid of, the misperceptions that are there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Kriya Yoga, which is the yoga of action. And so the tapas is kind of like that warming up process before you do exercise or something, where we try to generate heat and we want to move something, get the sluggishness and dullness off the body. And so that we're able to, really think and perceive things in a better way. So our tapas practice causes a positive change, and it involves a conscious, deliberate action. And so I just wanted to read just a couple of things from some of my sutra books that, stated in another way. Oh, I kind of like these words. So real and permanent change in behavior creates heat from the friction of a new positive pattern rubbing up against an old negative one. And so using discomfort to kind of propel us towards, a change. So it's kind of like, you got a pimple coming, it's going to form inside you until, you squeeze it, and then you're able to get rid of it. So when we are, starting with a tapas practice, we're looking at something that we want to shift. And, the new idea that we might have for the change can cause that conflict, like, oh, tomorrow I'm not going to drink, or I'm not going to do, eat sugar, or whatever it is. And we kind of feel that grip inside that feels a little bit uncomfortable. And that's what we want to, we want to get more comfortable with that. And Tara Brock kind of she calls it the trance of, when we're in a trance, when we're not aware. And so our lack of awareness, I think in today's society puts us in a trance of comfort, because we can get everything that we want as soon as we want, whenever we want. And then we start to think that that's the norm. So that at any time that we are having some discomfort, we reject it. We think there's something wrong. The anxiety builds or something. Then we start with the thoughts, there's something wrong with me, and all that pattern goes on. So we want to welcome the discomfort. We don't want to punish ourselves, but part of a tapas practice or this changing practice is to really welcome the discomfort. Then I want to read one other from another sutra book, which is a little bit more involved. So this one, the literal meaning of tapas is shining heat. So tapas is the radiance of the life force. It makes us radiant and vibrant. From the standpoint of practice, gathering and imbibing this radiant force is tapas. So that's the life force within us. So we have this inner light of awareness, and in every cell of our body has innate intelligence. It's connected to the water, so we have the wisdom within us, but sometimes it gets clouded and we're not able to see. And so that's what we're trying to cleanse off. But we want to remember we're full of this radiance. That was partly on what I was welcoming in was radiance. So I'm gonna, keep that thought with me there. So in the practice, it says to get there, what we need to do is some austerity. And so austerity is just, really learning a little bit of self-control in these ways through speech, through mental austerity, and through physical austerity. So observing the principle of purity, practicing humility, observing the principles of self-control and nonviolence, and committing ourselves to practices that help us reconnect with the pure and transformative power of intuition is physical austerity. So when our body is dull and sluggish and weighted down with all kinds of foods and, drinks and, lack of exercise or whatever, we're losing that radiance. So the radiance starts to diminish. And so we want to take care of the vehicle that we're in. Austerity of speech includes speaking only words which are not irritating, are true, are good and useful to others. And finally, that serve as a means of studying and examining our internal states. Mental austerity is measured by the clarity of joyfulness of our mind, cultivating thoughts that contribute to the serenity of our mind and fill our heart with kindness, fulfill the criteria for mental austerity. So I'm just we don't always talk about organs and senses in here, but our senses are primary for our perception. So just want to read one other small part around this. So impurities fall into two categories, physical and mental. Physical impurities are either toxins created by malfunctioning organs and systems or toxins the body soaks up from outside. Mental impurities are karmic impurities. And so we call these the In yoga, we call them kleshas or causes of suffering. In Buddhism, we call them the three poisons. So anyway, these deep-rooted impurities churn in our mind and manifest as negative waveforms or thoughts or emotions, tendencies propelled by anger, hatred, jealousy, greed, and attachment. They pollute the mind, and the polluted mind in turn disrupts the natural functions of our body, so both physically and mentally. So we want to, start to, in yoga, we use asana, which is movement and practice so that it actually starts to work the organs. So like twisting is good for the colon, and, pranayama is good for our breathing. So we want to engage in something, there's a lot of martial arts that we can engage in and other forms of exercise. We want to think of it that, we do need to take care of this vehicle that we're in, because it shines the light for us to be able to see through that lens, more clearly. Okay, so we know we want to create this fire. So how do we do it? So we have to do it by repeating over and over and over again. So we know in our practice, it's not going to happen in one day. And June even mentioned that when we were outside about, it takes time, for something to manifest. So if we were going to hike Mount Everest, you wouldn't, just do that tomorrow, but you start a training program where you can build, take time to build up to what you need. So you make a plan and you condition yourself, like you do drills if you were a football player. So you want to keep that in mind as you're putting that in. And I was just going to mention a few things that we do in yoga that help purify the senses. And, one is like dry brushing. So you take all the dead skin off of your body. You can just use a dry brush. You just brush everything down, and you actually are able to get more oxygen, so your body is able to take in and breathe better that way. Taking good, like coconut oil, to really bathe yourself with that before you take a shower. You can do that, or with after, but just keeping the body lubricated. We do tongue scraping, so just getting rid of what we call the ama, which is built up toxin, and so that you can taste things more freely. And also the neti pot helps with breathing. Especially in the allergies here in Texas, really good thing to do, that helps, for you. So again, that brightens your being. So just by doing these things, we are going to feel a little bit more alive. And then also like different kinds of fasting. So you could do like a media fast, or, a phone fast, or have a day of silence, or you could do a beauty fast where and I'm thinking of cultural beauty, where you surround yourself, with either nature or with art, so that you're taking in the beauty of life, as well. So those are parts of the tapas practice. The second part of this Kriya Yoga, so we want to get fire moving, open it up. And then the other is self-study, self-observation, how we reflect on what's going on with our, thoughts, words, and deeds, but also what we study, so studying the Dharma, studying the mindfulness training, so having a regular practice of reading some scripture or going to a teacher who knows more than you, so you want to study with one who has more knowledge to help provide, that wisdom. But it's just really noticing, like keep taking a good journal to see how you're responding in life. When you react, how are you reacting? And I like to, I've just put some of the poisons, and in yoga we have 5. So desire and attachment. So you could start already with having some thoughts around it when the desire comes up, and you're reflecting, why do I need it? Which is really basically working with impulse control. is to learn to say something, maybe I can just take a pause, right now, do I really need this? So you're just starting to suggest things to yourself is, I don't want to harm myself. I don't want to harm myself or another. And you can, of course, make up your own. Then there's anger and hatred. So a new thought might be, I know when I get really mad in a situation, and I want to really, usually when I am angry, is I want to blame other people. That's the first place I want to go, is to blame out there, rather than, really taking a look and asking myself, why is this bothering me? So I have to really focus on that. So to really look at what's the truth, because whatever we're thinking, Bobby kind of explained that, whatever is happening in here. It's not about the other person. So the finger comes back to you in all situations. There's no blame out there anywhere. So really taking the responsibility, for our own feelings and emotions in a very kind, and gentle, compassionate way. So no need to blame, and just look to see what the truth is. Ignorance, there's many ways of looking at situations. I could be wrong, as there could be another point of view. I know when I get in a situation with a friend that there's, something comes up and one is mad with the other, I usually say, I'm sorry that this, is happening between us. Can we look to see what the misperception might be? So that each person will be able to share what they're thinking and put it out there and open. So give it an open space rather than just living in the reaction. And then, we've got jealousy, fear, relaxation helps with that, pride. All right, and then the last of the Kriya Yoga is Ishvari Pranidhana, which is surrendering and letting go. And I think one of the gentlemen in the back is letting go of everything, right? You're letting go of letting go. Yes. So that's like really good. So you just let it all go. And whenever you feel something, that's what I've really been practicing for myself. When I feel anxiety coming up or something, I go, I'm just going to put that in the river. I'm going to just put that right now and let it go into the river of life. The river of life can take care of it for me. I don't need to hold on to it. It can be transformed and like compost. So do something good with it. And let's see. So letting go of the attachments to the outcome is a big part of that too. But it's also surrendering to that part of our ego mind, right? So that we're surrendering to having to have an identity all about me. And we come more into the non-self, empty of self, that we still feel part of that beautiful water, the collection of us all together. So I'm going to move now into the mind trainings and just kind of share a couple of them that we could, reflect on. So just kind of review a little bit of what Bobby had shared. The water would be like the seer that was on that page, that pure light of awareness that holds spaciousness and the nature of existence itself, joyful and expansive. And it's all about love. So it's being, it's the fullness of love, that is what the light is that imbibes us all. And the relative is the wave. So we're all here in this human body and we're experiencing these things and we're just trying to remove some of that cloudiness. And so the wave, or the relative is where we need to, instead of just being love, we need to roll up our sleeves and actually love somebody. So putting the practices in of, how do we do this? We can't just be thinking about it, but how are we moving into action? So there's 59 slogans. And the first 6 slogans train in the absolute and the spaciousness. How do we keep our mind open this way? To rest in that openness of mind. And the rest are, how do we get down to the work, and really make it happen? So the themes in the slogan practice are like pointers, and they always are focusing on awareness, kindness, and openness. And I liked how they kind of put it to look at the opposite. So when we're not aware, we're being distracted. And why do we distract ourselves? To avoid facing the fact that our existence is always changing and shifting with no reliable solidity. And there are several people tonight, that said they want to let go of anxiety, and part of our anxiety is things are always changing. So again, just learning to go, all right, I'm having some anxiety, kind of have a kindness towards that, maybe take a breath with it and just remind myself about this, the nature of life is changing. And it's okay, we're going to be okay with that. But, why are we distracting? Because it's hard to sit still. The emotions will come up at that time. So we want to remind ourselves that when we're distracted, I can bring myself back to the present moment awareness. Kindness. So when we're not being kind, I like this. Why are we indifferent to others? Due to our self-absorption, we have no room in our heart for others. So easily we can, be indifferent to others, just going about our day and not really realizing there's another being there, another being that's full of light. And then the last one was openness. So when we're not being open, we're being mentally stuck because we stay in the box of limitation and are afraid of our limitlessness of our own nature, that unbounded nature. So a practice then, so there's always a practice after, a slogan is given, and this is just kind of like an example of one that they use. As you go about your day, notice what arises in your mind. Pay attention to the feeling of shutting down or opening out. When thoughts arise, how many revolve around you? How many times do you think of others, and what kinds of thoughts are they? So they're good to practice, like a week at a time or so. And it's amazing. I'm one who thinks that I think about others. It was like, wow, it's amazing how that can happen. And the other practice was to notice when am I shutting down and when am I opening up in conversations with people while I'm at work. So I thought we could do this just for a second. So because we don't always realize when we're shutting down in our body. So if you just make a fist with your hands, so just kind of go on with me. So you just kind of squeeze tightly. So we're kind of shutting down. You may feel inside your body's getting a little bit stiffer, and then just take a breath. And then just slowly, slowly start to let your hands relax and open. And then we'll just go like this. We'll go ahead and just feel the movement of closing a little and opening. And then use your breath with that to inhale. And as you exhale, relax into that part that might want to close more. You can do this with your hands where you can feel yourself coming in a little bit. And then how far out can you open? Maybe it's not safe to open big. And maybe you have to make a smaller space at first when you're doing that. But you can sense that inside your body now, just after having done that, like even to make your hands wide, it may be hard to open that far out into life. How, when you come up among another person, are you like this or are you like this? So that was the practice that I did, just noticing myself in different situations, like how much was I pulling myself away and how much, was I opening towards? And that's more about, being the water. So I thought I would do one other one. And the primary focus is always to focus on the preliminaries, which is the preciousness of life, the certainty of death, the entrapment of karma, and then the inevitability of our suffering. So these are always contemplated, that we have that as the big picture. So like I said, there's 59 of them. And I was just thinking of this one that I really, really enjoyed. And so I'm just going to read it to you, because I thought we could practice this in today's society. Is so like we label everything and everybody. So I thought it was a really good one to focus on. So the three objects labeling our world, or the three objects, the three poisons, and the three seeds of virtue. So hopefully after this, you'll kind of remember this in your mind. So the three objects labeling our world. One way of looking at this slogan is that it is about the power of labels. It is about the way we categorize our world and what happens as a result. At a crude level, and very quickly, we're always sizing people up. We put the people we deal with into mental bins such as friend, enemy, or not worth bothering with. We do this both individually and collectively. There are times when this ability to categorize may be crucially important for our survival, which depends on knowing whom we can trust and whom we need to avoid. Simply recognizing that someone is a friend or enemy or neither in that way is not in itself particularly problematic. But what happens is that those labels take on a life of their own. They change from being simple observations of a current situation or interaction to become unchanging definitions of the way things are. They become the world according to us. And I can just say, I see this in therapy all the time. A couple will come in and one will say, he always does this, or they always do that, and put them in a box that they're conditioned to be that way always. And so we want to, I don't want somebody to say, I always do. I want to be able to change. So I want to have the freedom, to change and to know I can change. And I think it's a big gift if we can instill that in others, that this is just what's happening right now. There's another opportunity in the next moment that we can keep moving forward. So then the next part, it was the three poisons, fixed reactions to our labels. When our labels become solid in that way, we can't see past them. We can only react. And the way we do so, according to this slogan, is in three dysfunctional ways: by grasping, by hatred, and by avoidance or indifference. This trio is traditionally referred to as passion, aggression, and ignorance. As we scan our world, we pick out highlights and focus on those people who further or threaten our self-serving agendas, ignoring the rest. We're always struggling to draw in friends and push away enemies. And then the third, three virtuous seeds, taking responsibility for our own actions. We first need to see this pattern at work. Then when a poison such as hatred arises, instead of blaming the enemy that triggered us, we can see that hatred and the other poisons are our own creation. We can take full responsibility for them without the excuse of the external object. The poison is left hanging with no support. When the three poisons arise, we can take them in and hope that in doing so, others may be freed of such harmful patterns. And that way we can transform them. So the practice for that day would be pay attention to labeling and noticing how tenacious such labels are. When we react, notice what you're reaching to and where you place the blame. So, and there's many. So like, a couple others I had picked out because I went over was like, how to be, let me just read a couple here that I had.
drive all blames into one. So that means, when you're blaming somebody else, look at yourself, you know what I mean? Where do you blame yourself? You know what I mean? And how can you take responsibility? Be grateful to everyone, noticing confusion, stop complaining. So there, lots of different ones. So I'd suggest, you know what I mean, that it might be another way to practice in the new year is to get the slogans. So Pima Children, you can get them online. If you just Google mind trainings slogans, and you could look up hers, and each person has different commentaries. Judah, let's see, this one is by Judith Leaf. And then also Norman Fisher has another good one. So I'll just end it there. That I